How's it going, everybody? Welcome back for another video, and in today's episode, I do have a special guest coming on a little bit later. We will be talking about some of the bets going on Thursday Night Football, but before we do get into that, I want to go ahead and get into my recommendations, just of my favorite bets going on today. But even before that, go ahead, hit that subscribe button if you are new here. You know, last episode we made $365 if you followed along using a $50 unit. And honestly, we were at $575 before Miro Heiskanen's assist got changed to a goal, which was a $200 swing for us. But that's all right. You know, when we're coming out $365 ahead, we're still feeling pretty good about that. It was our best episode so far, so if that's not a reason to subscribe, I don't know what is. Also, hit that like button if you enjoy my content, and let's go ahead and get into the bets for today, because there are a few of them that I like. You know, starting out, I'm going to kind of plow through these so we can have some time here. But right on Fox Bet, this one is their Super Boost of the day. And, you know, they've had some better Super Boosts, but this one is not one that I'm going to turn down. I'll probably throw half a unit on this. Fox Bet, each team to score a touchdown in each half at plus 200. I do think this has a chance to be a reasonably high-scoring game. I think that we'll see a few touchdowns. So we're talking about 4 touchdowns overall, just 1 per team per half. I think that there's a very good likelihood that happens, and I think at plus 200, you are definitely taking that one. Also, moving into MGM, we're going to talk a little basketball here because the Nuggets and Lakers are playing Game 4 tonight as well. I like Jamal Murray at 30 points at plus 225. You know, this is a guy who has been hot all playoffs. He's had some down games, but when he's had some up games, he's hitting 30s, he's hitting 40s, he's hitting 50s. So I think Jamal Murray has a good chance to have a good game tonight. The Nuggets have been close and 1-1 in the last 2 games. I think that this game is another close one, and I think the stars shine bright. So Jamal Murray, 30 points. I will be taking that one. Moving into DraftKings, if you've been following along with the channel, you know what we're doing here. Max bet of $25, the Lakers to score first, boosted to plus 150. We've taken this in every game in the Eastern Conference Finals. We've taken it in every game in the Western Conference Finals. We're taking the Lakers because they score first more than the Nuggets score first, and that's really all there is to it. But at plus 150, can't blame me for taking either side. You got to take it. This is a 50-50 bet at plus 150 odds. So hammer that every time you see it. Also on DraftKings, moving back into that Jags and Dolphins game. DraftKings this week giving out a 20% boost for every single game of the week. A one-time use, but you can boost any bet you want. They did knock it down from 25% in the last 2 weeks. That's okay. We will still take that 20% boost. And I'm going to take, in this one, I want to do a little bit of a parlay here, take a little bit of a swing. I'll take the Jags and the over. I could swing either way on the over, but I do think the Jags win this game. I think both of these are better than 50-50. With that 20% boost, you're getting this all the way up to plus 234. I'm going to take that one. I think that there's a very, very good chance that that happens. So I think that's honestly, that would be my expected outcome. I'm thinking probably about a 30-25 range win for the Jags. So the over-under set at 49 points. I think that's about where we finish, and I like that bet. So let's move into FanDuel. I already said, I think the stars shine bright in that Game 4 between the Lakers and the Nuggets. Jokic and Murray at 25-plus points each. I seem to have lost the odds on that, but I believe it was at plus 300. Both of these guys are consistently right in that 25 to 30-point range. Jokic came a couple points short. If they are both playing the full game, taking their needed rest, but playing most of the game, they should be in that range. So I like them both to hit 25 points in this game. Next up, James Robinson to score a touchdown and Jags to win at plus 240 on FanDuel. James Robinson has been incredible in his first few games. He's right around 6 yards a carry, and that is against 2 of the better defensive fronts in the NFL right now, with the Colts and their revamped defensive line with Defoe, as well as the Titans who brought in Jadeveon Clowney. So he was running all over those teams. I think that he has a chance to run all over Miami as well. That's a step down as far as the defensive line goes. So I think he has a very, very good chance to get a touchdown in this one, and the Jags are the favorite. So you get him at plus 240. You're taking that. So let's get into some college football because we haven't talked much college football, but UAB to lead at the half and win versus South Alabama is at even odds, right around plus 100. So I like this one because UAB is a fairly heavy favorite. I do think that they win this game, and the team that leads at half tends to win. I don't think that this is going to be a super low-scoring game where they just get the 7-0 second-half touchdown. I think that this is a reasonably good game, but I think that UAB takes both halves. Takes the first half and the second half. So I'll take them at even odds. And finally, we've been doing them. We're going to take some swings. We're going to do these same game parlays. So on FanDuel, you can get a $20 same game parlay. As long as you place the bet, you do get a $10 free bonus money. So it's not necessarily a free bet, but you got to play through with that money. But essentially what this means is you are getting a $20 bet for $10. And as always, I'm going to take a pretty big swing on this one. We're going to go 5 legs. James Robinson over 68.5 rushing yards. Like I said, he has been running all over teams so far. Myles Gaskin over 37.5 rushing yards. I like Myles Gaskin in this game, and when I get into my talk with my guest today, you'll see a couple more Myles Gaskin props that I like. So I like him going over 37.5 rushing yards. And Fitzmagic over 15.5 rushing yards. I like the quarterback rushing yards. I actually have both of them in this parlay. I also have Minshew over 17.5 rushing yards. I do think that if this game is hotly contested late, these are two quarterbacks who have a tendency to scramble in crunch time. So I like both of them going over their rushing yards. And finally, the last leg, Preston Williams over 48.5 receiving yards. I do think that he goes over. I think Preston Williams is a sleeper in this game. I think that he absolutely explodes, and he is good for a couple deep bombs, you know? He could get 48.5 receiving yards in one throw. He's that kind of receiver. He's got that ability, that game-breaking, super big play ability. So, all told, that is plus 34.69 odds. Our $20 bet, if this hits, would win right around $700. So, let's hope we get one of these. You know, we've lost these in some of the hardest ways. You know, 2-yard losses, 1-drop losses, but we're going to hit one. And I hope this is the one. So that's all I've got on my recommendations. Let's go ahead and transition. All right, I'm here with our guest today, Joe Pickering. Joe is a friend of my roommates, and we're just kind of meeting each other, but he is kind of an expert when it comes to sports. He knows a lot, and he's going to help us make some bets on the Thursday Night Football game today. Joe, nice to have you on. Go ahead, introduce yourself. Give us any plugs that you've got.
Well, thanks so much for the kind introduction, Billy. I'm Joe. I'm a junior at Syracuse. I'm studying sport analytics, so pretty much sports betting, kind of. And yeah, my Twitter is jsniper1018 if you want to check me out, and I'm excited to be here.
Awesome. All right, so today what we're really going to do for you is we're just going to go through DraftKings because they've got a nice promo running. They've got a 20% boost that you can get on every single game of the week, so boost any odds 20%. So we're going to go through that game, especially because it's going on tonight, and we're just going to talk basically all the main bets. We'll go over the money line, spread, total points, and then we'll talk some of the player props, and we'll just tell you which ones we like, which ones we're staying away from. But let's start out with that money line. In this game, the Jags are minus 165. The Dolphins are plus 143. It looks about the right range to me. I do think the Jags win this game, but that Dolphins money line at plus 143 is a little bit tempting, especially the way they played the Bills real close last week, and I don't think that the Jags have necessarily been challenged particularly toughly so far this season.
Absolutely. I mean, especially when you get like the line like a -3, you get it's such an interesting difference between picking the money line where you can get Miami at plus 140, which is the probability of like it's under 50% rather than taking the -3 on the other end. So I think it's interesting because both ends might be playable. You don't want to play both, but like both are kind of plausible picks in my opinion.
Yeah, I agree with that because just depending on your level of confidence with Miami, because I do think this is a close game. Do I think it's close and Miami gets the edge? Or in that case, like I take the money line, or do I think it's close But in the end, I think Jacksonville wins. In that case, it might not be a bad idea to take that spread because you're getting better odds on the Miami spread than definitely than you are on that Jacksonville money line.
Right. Exactly. Exactly.
Yeah, so the one I'll
Um,
definitely be staying away from is, at least personally, is Jacksonville to cover at -3. I don't think. I mean, it's definitely possible, especially in football where a garbage time touchdown can definitely sway the spread. But I don't necessarily trust Jacksonville to win this game by a whole lot.
yeah, especially with two teams like so early in the season, they're both kind of expectations aren't really there this season, so you don't really know what you're going to expect. With a line of -3, anything can happen. I love the pick. I love +140 there. I was kind of leaning Jags at the beginning, but you've definitely convinced me a little bit, at least to consider that Miami side of things.
Yeah, it's definitely an interesting one. So let's also talk about this over under set right at 49 points. No halves here, so you do have that opportunity for a push. -110 both sides, so it doesn't look like the public has gone too far one way or the other to sway those odds. I don't know. What are you feeling? Are you feeling a lower scoring game or a high scoring one today?
I don't know. I mean, Minshew's been pretty great to start the year. I think he's completing somewhere around like 70% of his passes, which is pretty insane. They put up points on Tennessee. They also gave up points. And then against the Colts week one, I mean, it was a little bit low scoring. But so I think, again, inconsistent teams, you don't really know what to expect. I typically find Thursday nights to go low scoring wise compared to Sundays, but you never know.
Yeah,
Any
definitely. It's a question. The question to me is, I don't think either team is great. The question is the defense going to be worse or is the offense going to be more inept? So I'm probably going to stay away from this one for the most part. But
hmm
if I had to pick, I think I'd take the over. I think Gardner
Right.
Minshew's been popping off a little bit, and we know Fitzmagic can keep up throwing the ball once in a while. So there's a chance
Absolutely.
this turns into a little bit of a mini shootout. So if I had to take one, I'd take the over. But in general, I'm probably staying away from the over under in this game.
Yeah. Another way sometimes when I like the over under but don't love it, I find creative ways to make it a bet. So like for example, if you like the over a little bit, you might think about taking like an anytime touchdown score prop, or some other creative way to incorporate the idea that there will be scoring in the game.
Yeah, especially we're actually well, let's get into the touchdown scores now because that's the next place I was going to go. And I do like that idea because if you think it's going to be a high scoring game but you're still not quite sure on that over under, maybe it's not a bad idea to take Keelan Cole or Mike Gesicki to score just a touchdown
Yep.
anytime and see like how that plays out for you because you'll get better odds on that than you would the over under.
Especially with the differences, a lot of sites offer just huge differences in lines with touchdown scores. So you get volatility. So on one site you might get like +200 versus +300, and as we all, that's a huge swing. So I think when you get creative with these, like especially with touchdown props, you open the door to a bunch of
Yes,
possibilities.
and absolutely, I love that you touched on that. I've been hammering that a little bit on this channel. What you
Yeah.
need to check every sports book before you're placing a lot of these bets because the odds can sway
hmm
drastically. I know like the best example we had is 2 episodes ago we were doing a prop on Nikola Jokic to get a triple double, and the odds ranged anywhere from +400 to +800 depending on the books.
Jeez. Right, and that's an implied probability difference of 100%. Like
Exactly.
that's huge. That's huge. And when it with sports betting, I mean, you just have to be 3% profitable to be profitable long term, or 3% edge on the book to be profitable long term. So if you can swing your odds of 50%, 100%, like
Yeah,
no
it's
brainer.
one of the best ways to do that. So let's talk these touchdown props. There are a
hmm
couple guys that I do like to score a touchdown. They also always offer the first or last touchdown. I typically stay away from those, but
hmm
are there any of those that you like in this one?
I agree. I typically don't take the first or last touchdown scorer. Too many
Yeah,
variables involved. You
exactly.
mentioned Gasicki. I love Gasicki this week. On Bovada, he was +165. Last week he had I think 8 catches, 100 yards, touchdown. He's getting the targets. He's getting the shares. Seems like he and Fitz have built some sort of strong connection. Um, and as we know, with tight ends, it takes them a couple years to develop sometimes. Who knows? He might be breaking out. Could be a steal at plus 165. Later in the season, we might not be getting those lines with him. That's my thought.
Yeah, definitely. I think coming into the season, I drafted Mike Gesicki in one of my fantasy football leagues for a lot of those same reasons. Year
Mm-hmm.
2 and 3 for pass catchers, whether that's receivers or tight ends, tend to be their chance to break out, and he's looked good so far this season. And yeah, with
Mm-hmm.
that line, 165 you said on Bovada. On DraftKings, it's only plus 150. So again, check all your books, but I think there's
Mm-hmm.
a very good chance that he scores in this one. Another guy that I do like, I actually like the running backs on both sides. You know, there's a good
Mm-hmm.
chance for some rushing touchdowns, especially when you get near the goal line. Um, Miles Gaskin for Miami seems to be taking over that backfield, and
He sure does.
what better time than prime time for him to kind of go ahead, fully break out, take that job,
Mm-hmm.
and do it with a touchdown. You know, he's had well over, like, right around that 60, 70 yard range for both week 1 and week 2 in his
Mm-hmm.
combined total yards. And he has not quite scored yet, but he's getting the looks, and he's eventually going to put one in there.
Yeah, he's getting the looks. Doesn't seem to be Breida. Breida hasn't scored a touchdown, and Breida has never really been a touchdown guy. So I love that pick. Gaskin probably going to get the goal line carries. Could steal one there. I like Ryan Fitzpatrick at plus 500.
I do
Um,
too.
he always, he seems to find a way to run stuff in. Like in over the course of his career, he's scored a couple rushing touchdowns. When you get plus 500, 1 in 6 odds. It's just saying that he have 3 rushing touchdowns this year. Yes, I think so. So I like the odds plus 500.
Yeah, and even looking on DraftKings, that's plus 650 here. So
Oh, great, that's
even
beautiful.
better odds. And you know, this is one you were talking about, kind of playing with it when you don't want to necessarily take the over under. In high
Hmm.
scoring games, Fitzmagic has this ability to rush late. He loves to
Hmm.
scramble late in games because he's really not that great as a passer. He doesn't necessarily find his open receiver, but he will run with it, and he gets a lot of those late game rushing touchdowns. So at those odds, I love that one quite a bit.
Yeah, and you don't even have to throw a full unit on it. You can throw half a unit, a quarter of a unit, especially with plus 650. You can just, you can bet a fifth of a unit to win a unit. Like it's
Exactly. I mean, it's great. Those are some really, really good odds. So I like that one. Any others that you like before we go ahead and move on to some of these player over unders?
Yeah, yeah. Then sometimes I look at a 2 touchdown scorer. We mentioned we don't like the last and the first, but sometimes you get some nice odds with the 2 touchdown scorers, especially with guys that typically will score 12 touchdowns in a year. Um, I'm trying to pull up those right now. DJ Chark is a potential one. He's sitting in that 500 range for 2 touchdowns, which would be pretty awesome. He's obviously their go-to target. I don't know. I don't know. After looking at these touchdown lists, I might be swinging my prediction to say a low-scoring game in this one. I don't know.
Yeah,
I don't
it's
know.
tough. There's just not necessarily a ton of talent.
Right.
One that does tempt me a little bit on that 2 touchdown. I already talked about Miles Gaskin on that 1 touchdown. If this is a
Hmm.
true breakout performance and he runs away with it, plus
Hmm.
1100 odds on 2 touchdowns for a running back. Especially
Right.
if he
Running
takes
back.
that starting
Yeah.
running back that is
I
interesting to me.
love it. Yeah. 1,200 on Bovada. 2 touchdowns for a starting running back is not all uncommon. You've got guys scoring
Exactly.
20 touchdowns. Um, I like Eifert as a sneaky play, either for 1 or 2 touchdowns. He's over the course of his career, he's never really been a yards guy, but always been the red zone target with Cincinnati and Dalton. He scored one last week, I think,
Yeah.
and he's sitting in that plus 170 anytime, plus 1,600 for 2 touchdowns. So I think that's an interesting play tonight as well.
Yeah, definitely. Um Yeah, I think that's all I've got for those multiple touchdown ones. I'm not going to venture into the 3 touchdown props. Those are a little bit
No.
like too bold for my taste.
Yep. Throwing
But
money.
yeah, let's go ahead. Let's do a couple of these over unders because I like to
Hmm.
take these ones sometimes, and I think they often go hand in hand. I will say if you're doing these ones, I tend to lean FanDuel because you can do a same game parlay and start stacking
Okay.
up a few of them.
Yep.
But we'll just talk about whether we think these are gonna go over under. Fitzmagic and Gardner Minshew for their passing yards. These are both fairly high, I think. Gardner Minshew at 269.5, Fitzmagic at 267.5. These odds have changed 3 times since I started looking at them, but
Yep.
we'll just talk about like probably around minus 110 each way.
Yeah, yeah. No, I've got about the same thing for me. I think Fitz probably goes under. You mentioned his running ability, especially in close games. I don't see him going over
Yeah,
270
that's
unless
just
they
too
get
high.
blown out. Unless they get blown out.
Yeah.
Um, Minshew, on the other hand, he's been hot. Looks like on Bovada they're putting at the over at minus 135, so it looks like they've gotten some money on the
Oh,
over.
okay.
Um, he's interesting. He's been hot. We'll see. We'll see. I wouldn't take it, but especially with minus 135, I wouldn't take it. But definitely, I'm going to lean under. What about you?
I think I'd lean under for both. I think this is I don't love I Gardner Minshew has been hot, and I think he remains serviceable. I don't think that this
Hmm.
is like a true breakout. Oh, Gardner Minshew is a top 15 starter kind of year,
Right.
but I do think that he throws the ball a little bit. I think he finishes over 200 yards. I think he probably finishes around 250, but
Love it.
270 is something. I will say on that Fitzmagic one, I also like the under, and all the money seems to have moved towards him on DraftKings. You can get the under on Fitzmagic at plus 108 right now.
See, that's really interesting because it seems insignificant for it to be. I mean, minus 110 versus plus 108, but like
Yeah,
isn't that
that's
the
the
20% boost?
that's the
Right.
sway from a favorite to an underdog. So you
Yeah.
gotta like that.
Exactly. Exactly. I kind of like that as well. If you do that on FanDuel or whatever that was.
Yeah.
Um,
So same 2 quarterbacks, and both of them over or under 1.5 touchdown passes. This one there does seem to be a lot of money on because Fitzmagic is at minus 125 for the over, even odds for the under, and Minshew at minus 167 for the over, and plus 134 for the under. I would
wow.
say I'd take the over on Minshew if the odds hadn't been swayed so much, you know?
Right. Right. I mean, realistically, how many games has he thrown over 2 touchdowns? If you would have to justify it as like 60% of his games for that to be
Yeah.
a good bet, and I don't see that. I don't see that at all. I say that's probably should be, I don't know, even maybe like minus 130. I'd say for me to take it.
Yeah, I'd lean there. Not quite that far.
And on Bovada, I would even consider going under with plus 160 for
Wow.
Minshew.
Yeah, that's definitely an interesting one.
Right. Because you don't care if he throws four, it's the same as him throwing two, right? So you're taking the
Exactly.
probability that it's a low scoring game,
And you
which I
also get
like.
the both of these quarterbacks. We've already talked about it with Fitzpatrick. Do sometimes tend to run near the goal line. So
Hmm.
there's a good chance that Minshew gets 2 touchdowns, but one of them's a rushing touchdown.
Yep, and we talked about the breakout candidates at running back. Jacksonville has one too.
Yeah,
Um,
James Robinson has been on fire in the first 2 games.
right. I think there's going to be a lot of like both of these teams aren't passing teams. Like they do throw the ball, but they aren't overwhelming passing teams that are going to throw the ball every time in the red zone. I think they're going to be balanced, and I think that's going to hurt both these quarterbacks with the over on the 1.5 passes touchdowns.
Yep, I definitely like that. So then let's talk rushing yards.
Okay,
Um, FanDuel does not seem to have an over under for James Robinson. Does Bovada have one?
they do. They set it at 75 and a half.
Okay.
Over minus 125, minus 105. So I mean, you could say it's probably even in the 76, 77 range then.
Yeah, that's an interesting one to me. It's a lot of rushing yards for an undrafted rookie for the over and under.
Right. Right. I mean, it seems to be that he's got his workload back to back weeks, 16 carries. That seems to be the number for him. He had 100 last week.
I
No.
think there's a good chance he does it, but
Yeah,
I'd
I do
probably
too.
stay away from that one just
Yeah.
because it's still an undrafted rookie. I'm still a little nervous on that.
Mm-hmm.
One that I
No,
will
that's
be
true.
taking, Miles Gaskin over under is set at 39 and a half. I've said a couple times I think that this is a big game for him. So
Mm-hmm.
40 rushing yards to me seems like that's definitely a pretty notable one. It's minus 110 both ways. I definitely like the over on that.
Yeah. I do too. I do think he's gearing up to be the number one guy. Especially in the NFL, I think we've seen a shift towards from teams with on the at the running back position. They tend to go for the younger guys rather than paying
Yeah.
big money. So I know that they got Breida, but like at the same time, you typically go for the inexpensive guy, especially if they can produce. And if Gaskin and Robinson continue to produce, I like looking forward for the rest of the year. They could be very interesting plays. And early in the season, we might be able to get some nice discounts on lines for them.
Yeah, definitely. All right, so let's move into our receiving yards.
Okay.
There are not a ton of players that I'm super interested in the receiving yards, but one guy I do like a little bit as a sleeper, Preston Williams for the
Yeah.
Dolphins. Over under is set at 44 and a half, and he could see a big game, especially if the Dolphins do go down. Could be a good game script for Williams to get a couple of long bombs.
He had a nice year last year. I think I like that. I like that a lot. I like that a lot. Anyone else you got? I'm trying to pull them up on my screen.
Yeah,
Uh,
I've got a few. So Tyler Eifert, 29 and a half. Like you said earlier, he's not a major yards guy, so I don't necessarily love that one. Devontae Parker is set at 60 and a half. That one, I'm a I think he finishes right around there, so I don't really like making the call on
mm-hmm.
that. You said you like Mike Gesicki today.
I
Over under
do.
for him is 49 and a half, but it's already
Okay.
at minus 150 for the over, plus 120 for the under.
Geez, yeah, no, I'm looking at it seems the same thing for Gasicki in the receptions. Over under receptions is 4, but it's minus 165. So I think like with him, they're totally they've taken notice of that huge
Yeah,
game
the public is
last
clearly
week.
going one way on Jasicki.
And that opens up, even though like I talked about how high I am on him, it does open up the other end of the bet where you take the under. Even though I love
Yeah.
him, there comes a point where the line swings too far,
Yeah,
and you have to capitalize.
exactly. Like even if I think that there's a 50-50 chance that he goes over, I'm still getting
Yeah,
better odds on the under. So,
exactly. Right, exactly. My receiving yards for Gasicki is 52 and a half. Under is plus 115, which is for tight end. I kind of like that
yeah.
play.
Especially, tight ends aren't necessarily deep threats. They sometimes
Yeah.
he could get 6 catches and still not go over.
Yeah, and I mean, also look at Mark Andrews last week. He had what 30 yards, 40 yards. Like it happens. Tight ends, like even the top tight ends,
Yeah.
they don't like. There's weeks where they don't put up 50 yards.
Yeah, happens constantly. So,
It happens constantly.
I am a
So
little bit tempted to just take the under on Mike Gesicki as far as it's been swung by everyone betting the over.
right. I mean, I kind of like taking Gasicki to score and Gasicki under 52 yards,
Yeah,
even though that kind of
makes a lot of
goes
sense.
against each other.
If you're on FanDuel, you can throw that in a parlay. Probably get right around plus, I'd say it'd probably come to plus 300 range odds.
Wow,
So the score in
wow,
the under, that's a tempting one.
that'd be pretty awesome. But I also kind of like betting them separately because they kind of hedge each other,
That's true.
um, and they manage your risk at least a little bit. Um, just another thing.
Yeah, definitely don't want to throw too much risk in the mix if you don't have to. But
Right.
anything you
Especially on a
can.
Jaguars Dolphins.
Yeah. This is definitely one of the more unpredictable games just because it's two teams that it's hard to know
Right.
exactly what to think of.
Mm-hmm.
So, final
Um,
one I want to talk about here is interceptions. Gardner
okay.
Minshew over half an interception. So, one interception is at plus 106. I like that. I think that's better than 50-50 odds on him throwing one interception.
Yep.
So, and I mean, this isn't. He is a little bit of a game manager in that he likes to play it safe.
Mm-hmm.
But
He does. He
I've got
does.
to look back at his career, but I would be shocked to
I
hear that
just
he
pulled it
hasn't
up.
thrown an interception in half his games.
I just pulled it up, and he's sitting at exactly right about that. So he's got through 2 games this year. He's thrown 2 picks, so one a game, and then last year he was looks like did he play 16 games? No way.
I
No,
think
I
he
think per
came
rec.
in at halftime when Nick Foles broke his collarbone. So he played,
Yep,
but he
yep.
didn't
14.
fully play.
He started. It says he started 12, and he threw 6 picks, so 50%.
So yeah,
Exactly.
slightly better than 50-50 odds. You get the 106. I'd take the over on
Hmm.
Minshew interceptions.
I like that. I like that. Especially all it takes is one throw
Yep.
for plus odds.
Especially,
Love it.
I watched this in the Colts game. Everyone's ragging on Kirk Cousins for his 3 picks. One of them was a
Mhm.
halftime Hail Mary that he had no intention
Yeah.
of doing anything else with. That's how sometimes you can get the pick on the quarterback. It's not necessarily
Yeah.
a bad decision, just they don't really care about your fantasy team. They don't care if they throw a pick if it's to throw one of
Hmm.
those late game Hail Mary type plays. So,
Yeah. I really love the outside the box thinking with the props too, because I think with a lot of the big games, you tend to find less of an advantage with game lines, over unders, and you find more of a difference between lines, what they should be and what they actually are with props, with creative ways to go about it, and I think that's where you make your money in sports betting.
exactly.
Is once you find those touchdown props that are swinging by 50% from sports book to sports book, and you really focus in on that.
Exactly. One of the misconceptions I think about sports gambling is that the book knows more than you do. But
Yeah.
if 8 different books disagree with each other, I find that a little bit hard to believe sometimes. And I think those are the bets where you want to be making your
Hmm.
money.
Right. I like for an example, I found last year with hockey empty net betting, the none of the sports books have it accurate at all, and I ended up making my own model to predict empty net goals. And I found that my model had like a 30% edge on books, which is like but
Yeah.
it's something so random like empty net goals. Like I'm sure the volume of people betting empty net goals is countable on 2 hands. You know what I mean?
Yeah,
Like,
for sure. It's you, but if you find that little edge, it works.
right, right. So maybe Gasicki.
Yep, that might be it. All right. Well, that is all we've got for today. So thank you to all our viewers watching. Go ahead, hit that like button if you enjoyed the video. Subscribe to the channel if you haven't already. And hopefully you can follow along and make yourself a little bit of money. But that's all for us, and we will see you in my next video.